there is a scene in Mahabharata that just when the war was declared, both Duryodhana and Arjun, they go to ask for Lord Krishna, and then he gives them a choice. And in fact, he asked Arjuna to choose first, and the choice was between he, who is non-fighting and without any weapons, and on the other side the whole army, and including all the weapons and everything. So then Arjuna chose Krishna, the non-fighting Krishna, and Duryodhana got the whole army with everything, right? So he thought he was lucky, but the question was that if Lord Krishna knew how adharmic Duryodhana is, why did he help him?
Because he has to be fair. He asked for his help.
I think because he believes that everyone
Chance to
has
change.
that side to them when he was giving the option, and so it's like he did his best as the neutral observer of it.
Yeah.
Or maybe he was just obliged.
Obliged.
Relationship. Either isn't you guys pick. I can offer two things. Keep it in run. Sometimes you just
And sometimes
need
you're
to buy
obliged.
and say choose.
Yeah.
Also, then he's giving the thing to them, as in he's allowing them to make their karma or whatever, like as opposed to him being the.
So Duryodhana
You give
was
clarity
the
to
one who
both.
selected first.
No,
was
Arjuna
the
selected
non-fighting Krishna. Okay.
Arjuna selected non-fighting Krishna. So actually both of them went really happy because each one got exactly what they wanted. So Duryodhana saw no value for non-fighting Krishna. He saw value in this whole big army. And Arjuna thought that
Did they do
everything
it
else.
together?
I
So they're
remember,
together.
I remember that we have to do our karma, and Arjuna believed that for basically for everything else, to leave anything to chance, we pray. So he thought that I have an army, I have my skill, I have everything, but where will I get that presence
Additional.
of that? So that is why he wanted Krishna.
That's true.
So that was his choice.
That was his
Yeah,
choice.
not this is an answer.
No, why
why
did-
Krishna.
why did-
Yeah, exactly.
Correct.
So
Himself
that
also
shows
like that.
why Arjuna
Arjuna
got
means
it in
what?
his mind because of which he chose
Ishwara has
his
given.
grace
Ishwara
to make
for
the
the-
difference.
Look after all the
But isn't it
there
really
is a
daily
divine
in
wisdom.
life we always get choices. What we choose is our destiny, no?
This is not our destiny, it's using our free will.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what do you choose to take? I mean,
Yeah, will actually
lead to
give
your-
us a result. So see, one thing that we need to understand when we talk about all these stories, ultimately we have to understand that whether it is Ramayana, it is Mahabharata, it is Bhagavad Purana, or it is Vedas. Vedas are very sophisticated in their analysis. The vision that they have of Ishvara is not a person. This is why Krishna is called Avatar, means Ishvara which is coming in one form. So everything, whether you study the most sophisticated Veda to these stories, there is one thing which is a definition of Ishvara, not as a person, but as Sarvajnaha,
All pervasive.
Sarvashaktiman. So what does it mean? There is a presence which pervades everything, and that is in form of knowledge, all knowledge, and all power. And how do you know the presence of this all knowledge and all power if it is pervading everything? How do you know that it is pervading everything? It manifests itself as different laws. So if you just look at the physical body that we have, right? How many laws are operating within this physical body?
Crazy.
Is crazy, right? So that means you have a physical law operating because of which what? The body stays on the earth and it doesn't fly off. Laws of gravity are operating right now so that it can, the biological laws are operating right now. Then chemical laws, neurological laws, then psychological laws, genetics, then
And basically all the laws you know
all
are
the laws,
operating.
right? Now, they are not all separate, they are all
In sync.
in sync. They actually are, there is a whole network of laws which is, it's not this is kind of separate, which
No,
is
they in-
combining everything, which is actually
They
creating a very
interoperate.
complex, they interconnect with each other to give us this complex body. So therefore, if there are just physical, mechanical laws, there is no mechanism for it to all join together and work in a sync so that body can operate intelligently. So this power which we see is what we call this all knowledge and all power, Ishvara. This intelligence manifests as physical laws, this intelligence manifests as biological laws, chemical laws, neurological laws, psychological laws, laws of genetics, and it combines them all to produce one given body. And that body is also connected to the whole environment which also follows these laws. So that means you can understand the complexity of this creation and the laws. So therefore, our vision of Ishvara is not one given entity. It is, and this you can see it either as physical laws, you can see it as neurological laws, or as I just explained today, you can see it as the laws which govern how much resources we have, and we call it Lakshmi. So same. So this is what we call Lakshmi. When you see the laws with reference to the power that we are given and the extent to which we use our powers to accomplish things, that is what we invoke as Goddess Durga. Right? So there are not all these different entities. We are looking upon all knowledge and all power in its various manifestations. Right? Now within this universe, which has all these different laws, there is also what we call a constant creation. And that constant creation is that there is a capacity for every new moment to emerge every second. And we give it a name called Vishnu Brahma. Then within that, constant destruction. By the time I finish one sentence, how many moments are gone? So many. So that is destruction, Shiva. Then you have within this constant coming into being and kind of the things which are being destroyed. Suppose your eyes were able to see this constant change, it will not be able to interact with the universe. There has to be a seeming stability. Only then the interaction is possible. So within this constant change, when it comes to our transaction with the world, we see the seeming stability which enables us to actually respond to situations. This is what we call vision. So what is beautiful is our whole culture is based on this understanding that actually through all these names, what is it that we are worshipping? Or we are not even worshipping, we are making our mind aware of His presence.
We are acknowledging.
We acknowledge its presence. Because imagine if there is a presence which pervades all of us and it governs all our interactions, but suppose we are totally oblivious to it. We operate from such a partial vision of reality. And when we operate from such a partial vision of reality, our whole perception is skewed. You begin to think, I'm small, I'm not connected to anybody else. You see the whole, and the way of operating in the world changes completely. So this is why this presence which is already there, what we are trying to do is what? Bring it to our mind so that our decisions and the way we feel about ourselves and the way we feel about others, it kind of doesn't lose sight of this presence. So all our festivals are all around this, so every month we have something or the other going on. Now, how does it relate to my question, which is why did Lord Krishna decide to help Duryodhana? Suppose you see it as all knowledge and all power, which is manifesting as all these different laws, and these laws are deciding what? One cause will lead to one effect. You can't, whether it is physical or it is biological or it is chemical, you add a cause, it has to produce an effect. You can't have somebody adding a cause and not
Having a result.
having a result. So that means if Duryodhana asked for Lord Krishna's help, what is he doing? He's adding a cause, right? Because he's using his free will to go and ask Lord Krishna. Is it possible that that cause will not produce an effect?
Has to produce.
It has to produce an effect, right? Because it's not one person. Please understand, it's not like one person who's deciding, should I help Krishna, Duryodhana or not. Ishvara for us is in form of infallible laws. It is in form of infallible laws which govern the whole universe through series of cause and effect relationships, all interconnected. In this way, suppose anybody acts, so therefore, suppose you look at physical laws, gravity. Does it make a distinction that, okay, if a good person is falling, he should not get hurt, and if a criminal is falling, then he should get more hurt? No, it's impartial. It acts. If you fall from this height at this speed, this is the outcome. So this is how it is. So if Duryodhana is asking, he has to receive a result. So this asking is called a prayer. In this, when you are asking not just to get another person, but you are invoking the grace of Ishvara, you must have a result. Now, what is important is, so Duryodhana has created a cause and he will have an effect. But the final outcome that he faces is not only dependent upon this prayer, it is also dependent upon all the other cause, which includes his past actions, which were all totally inappropriate. You understand? So when the result comes to him, it's this prayer produces a plus, but all his previous choices of killing and being unfair to his cousins and all, they have produced.
So why could the result not be go take a hike?
No, because otherwise what can happen, the cause to all knowledge and all power has to produce an effect. But what I want to show you is, you create this plus, but if you have too many minuses, because these are also causes, they also produce result, right? All his choices of actions, of how he treated his cousins, they produce minus. So what is the final outcome? What happened? He still lost the war. Yeah. So that means at any given point in time, it's not only one factor which is deciding whether you succeed or not. All these multiple factors come into play, and the overall then interaction and overall plus and minus. This is why things are so complex. That's why you cannot make a kind of a simplistic inference saying that a good person should always will have. Sometimes you see a person who's a nice person is going through some difficulty, is having some physical ailment. How would you account for that? So one person asked, this is an interesting question. So one person in Bangkok, she asked me, if your teacher was so evolved, why did he have kidney problem and heart problem and so many other diabetes and so many other complications? If he was such a good human being, he was doing so good, he should have a very cool, very healthy life. So if you make multiple factors into one variable, you will get into trouble. So that means at any given point in time in our life, what is playing is what? Not just one variable. It is what? Multiple variables. Some of it is physical, some of it is biological, some of it is chemical, some of it is neurological, psychological, genetics, your own karma. So all of this, and therefore you see the enormity of factors which are in form of cause and effects which are influencing your life. It is overwhelming. So now, how do you act in this world? You understand that it is too complex. At the same time, you are given free will to decide what is in front of you. So how do you use your free will with this knowledge? How would you use your free will intelligently to face whatever is in front of you? And what is in front of you, you understand, is a result of so many different variables coming together.
You follow dharma.
Excellent. This is what you can actually do. You can follow. This is where there are three or four things that you can do in order to kind of, first, how does it help you to know that everything that comes to me is a result of a complex interaction of all these multiple laws, which are not, they don't work within the time period of 50 years or 100 years. They work for millennia. So therefore, how will it help you? It will help you in answering this question as to what kind of world I'm living in. Am I living in a random world? Am I living in an unfair world? Or am I living in a highly intelligent and interconnected world? Because this is not something that you're going to ever declare to anybody, but it is something that is very deep in you. It's in form of your orientation. Actually, this orientation influences every decision that you make. Suppose you decide for some reason, many things don't happen our way, and therefore you have come to the conclusion that the world is unfair. What would be the nature of your decision making if you feel you are living in an unfair world?
You make efforts only. So anyway, it's all going to be unfair. So you can. It will happen.
So that means, so imagine.
And then you start snatching.
Absolutely. So that means, absolutely. Because anyway there are no consequences. So you just grab whatever you have to grab and there are no consequences because it's all just, so that.
But you look at everything negatively also, so you'll just be unhappy.
Absolutely. So these are the consequences. Please don't think that this is just a kind of a technical information that I'm giving you. It has direct implication on your decision making. Right? So here, if you think it is random or it is unfair, the nature of your decision making is what? I just grab. Who cares? Because anyway there is no real system of compensation which is fair. The second thing is I'm totally dissatisfied. Because I'm trying to be good, but I feel that it's not actually paying me. And those who are unfair and not very ethical, they get away.
Yeah.
So that means
Paisani.
even if I choose to be a good human being, it becomes a source of burden. In an unfair world, it actually becomes a source of burden because it has no compensation for being good.
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it. So therefore, these are either or. What were you saying, Anupam? You were saying something also. You said something. Okay. Doesn't matter. Neeta said something. Okay. Anyway, you said things. So now, but suppose
Anupa said that they won't make any efforts
you
to
won't
achieve.
make any effort. No effort because things are just whatever. So these are, suppose you are operating from this mindset. This is disastrous in terms of your participation in the world. And suppose you understand that it's a highly intelligent, interconnected world, which is connecting causes from millennia and interconnecting them in order to give me my specific situation at this given point in time. And that situation also requires a response from me. I can't just sit back and say, oh, this is giving me. It requires a response from me because my response becomes yet another cause for future effect. Right? So that is a continuum of cause and effect. It doesn't stop. It's not a static thing, it's a dynamic thing. Now when I choose my response and if I understand this, I will take into account dharma. Because I can't ignore, there is one more law in form of what I do and then what consequences it will have for me. So when you make a choice, if your understanding is it's an intelligent universe, dharma will be at the center. But your understanding of dharma will not be rigid like Bhishma, because this is all a flux. So it will not be like, okay, I have taken a vow to protect whoever is the king of Hastinapura and I'm just going to do it. Because it's complex. So that means it requires a certain assessment that, hey, but if this person has become king by unfair means, I have no obligation to back him. So this is what we call your, then it will also take what? Your specific position in the grand scheme of things and what is expected of you in this land, what is your sphere of influence. So that is what we call Swadharma. Your specific duties and responsibilities in this grand scheme of things. Then you will take into account your emotional, because sometimes our emotional makeup makes all the decisions. And when we do that, suppose somebody said something to you and you are disappointed. And suppose you make all your decisions from that disappointment. All your decisions they are skewed, but you will also get skewed in your decision making. So you always, when your decision making is concerned, you have to come back to your center and your understanding. If people don't have understanding, it is their issue. They will have to pay for it. When it comes to my choices, they have to come from not my emotional loads, but they have to come from my understanding of the universe and my role in it. So this way, what happens is, over a period of time, emotions, you don't have to do anything with it, but you have what we call mastery over emotions. Emotions have lost their capacity to take you here and there.
Pendulum.
Exactly.
Shouldn't let them
Become a little more
influence.
balanced.
Sorry?
Shouldn't let them influence your.
Yeah, so it can influence in some ways, but not that you lose sight of.
Shake you up.
Exactly. You lose them. Because within this order, see what I want to show you is one thing which is a slightly nuancing. Within this order, there is a psychological order which includes emotions. So you can't totally ignore emotions either, because emotions are also, whatever emotional life you have is also a result of many causes which you can't just kind of rub off, you know. You
So let them influence you but not disorient you.
Excellent. Excellent. So excellent. So that means you acknowledge these emotions, and in fact there is nothing wrong with emotions. Emotions are just indicators. It just tells you what's going on, right? Suppose that you have pain here. It is an indicator that it needs to be taken care of. It needs to be attended. It's not positive or negative.
No,
It's
without
just,
it will throw the balance off anyways, right? Because there's one element less.
yeah. So that means this is there and it does play a role, but it doesn't disorient you. This doesn't become the only factor in guiding your decisions. And suppose many things didn't happen your way, we also create a kind of a story about ourselves when we see ourselves as inadequate. So that means we see, which is what we call our self-image, which is a little bit shaky. Now this shaky self-image will also make us make choices which are also all over the place. So when you see this kind of an order and how intimately you are connected to Ishvara in form of all knowledge and all power, suppose you have been having a low self-esteem, what will you do? Now you see yourself as one of the manifestations, because all these orders which are Ishvara's order, where are they? They are operating right now in your body. Manifestation of Ishvara is right now in your body. Don't think that it's not some vague idea that, oh, Ishvara is everywhere. Right now. So that means whatever, whoever I am, it is what manifestation of all these complex laws, and that enables me to transact with this universe. So that way, your self-image also begins to improve, and you begin to see your connection with everything. Now, within this grand arrangement, you are given this faculty of choice, and in this faculty of choice, there are so many things about any of these. Do you know everything about everything? It's impossible. Whether it is physics or it is biology or it is chemical, you can't know all the causes in detail. And at the same time, you have to make decisions. So how do you make decisions? You do consider all of this, but you also recognize that there are certain things which are not within my capacity to know totally, to understand. For that, the only act I have is prayer. Prayer is the only act where you add a cause. You add a cause, and when you added a cause, what will happen? It will produce a result. So that means you have, suppose in any given thing, right? You want X thing, and you have done your own variables, 3 variables that you have added in order to get what you want. Now, you add one more variable in form of a prayer. Can the result remain 3? It has to move to 4. Suppose you were expecting, in terms of result, 3. Even without a prayer, you got it. Right? It's not like only prayer will get you. No. Even without it, because these 3 variables are your rod. When you have selected what should I do, your choices, how you are making these choices. So it was good enough. Yeah, your free will. So it was good enough. Suppose you were expecting 4, without the prayer, you would fall short. But with the prayer, you get it. Suppose you were expecting 5. Even with the prayer, you didn't get it. You didn't get it, right? Because 5 is still falling. The prayer, can you say prayer is useless? No, because it did move you from 3 to 4.
That's assuming the prayer gets answered.
As I said, there is, see, prayer is answered because it did move you from 3 to 4. Every cause will produce.
Your each and every prayer is not going to be answered to perfection.
It's not like
Because
that.
there is-
Yes, I think we have to change our terminology. We think the prayer is answered when we get
A
what
positive,
we want.
yeah.
No, the reality is every prayer is answered. It has to be answered because it's a cause. It has to produce an effect, but it may not
May not give you the result.
give you
which
the result that you want.
Also sometimes like you anyway, you expected sleep, you worked for sleep, you still prayed, you got it,
Yeah.
but not because of the prayer maybe, but
Wonderful.
you may have got it anyway.
So that means, please
Some prayer you may
understand.
have achieved.
Absolutely. So please don't think that only people who pray will
No,
succeed.
exactly.
Not at all. Because because this is also something which is coming into play. This is what I'm showing. At any given point in time, the result that we get is not just one variable, but interaction of multiple variables. What prayer will do is add one variable in your favor, but all the other variables
Should be within dharma.
remain
Variables
That
within
is-
dharma.
within dharma and exactly. So now, when you look at Duryodhana, can you apply this? Can you apply this?
Yeah, I mean, he wanted to win the war.
Yes.
He was happy with, so what he got was the army, but the outcome was winning the war. So he did get one thing, but it wasn't what he prayed for. So he had, let's say, a negative bank balance of 5 items.
Super.
One of them got negated. It's like saying, look, I'm in debt.
Superb.
I applied for loan, I got a loan, but I owe 10,000 crores. I only got 1,000 ka loan.
Super.
Exactly. Yeah, basically,
That's what I'm saying.
He prayed to win.
He got the
So-
goal.
And he thought, okay, bro, this army is epic.
This will help.
This is what I needed. But it wasn't.
It wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough. Do you understand this
Yeah.
dynamic? So if you understand this dynamic, you can explain any situation. If you don't understand this dynamics, you'll always have this thing, oh, but people who don't pray also succeed. It's that doesn't mean that prayer days is done.
In my mind, okay, my question is that could Lord Krishna not have said to Duryodhana that was, yeah, you do not deserve because you are whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be with Arjuna, with me and my army. Arjuna would have become much stronger. The war would have been less treacherous.
Yeah, more less people would have died.
Less people would have died.
Yeah. See,
Could
this-
that not have been an outcome?
See, the thing is, as I told you, that Lord Krishna.
There's no perfect.
If you no, 1 second. If you think Lord Krishna is a person, then yeah, you have a choice, right? I mean, so many people took Arjuna's side and they didn't take the Duryodhana side. But in Mahabharata, Lord Krishna is not represented as a person; he is represented as
An avatar.
Ishvara.
Avatar.
Ishvara means, what does it mean? That any cause has to produce an effect.
So the rule of
So-
thumb is every prayer has to be answered.
Exactly.
Whether it's sufficient to
Whether
get
That's
rid of
secondary.
food is another
The
matter.
point is he had to get an answer. So it was,
Absolutely.
you can't get a no. It adds.
So maybe no is an answer to a prayer.
So,
Even though an answer
see,
is
Yeah. So you gotta know in a different way.
when he
You got something,
went
you didn't give
to
him the
negotiate with
He
Duryodhana,
tried his best
he tried
already.
his best. And he told Duryodhana very, very clearly that you have been totally unfair and this is really not the way to treat your cousin. And he just pointed out everything that he has done in a calm voice, but he just told all, he didn't mince any words to tell him, right? So that is, he as a negotiator has a role to play, but he as somebody who then, how he responds to.
He
It's
shifted
showing.
himself to the higher level and he was talking as Ishvara.
Exactly.
Okay, whilst you were saying this whole thing, can I just tell you what was happening in my mind?
Sure.
Which relates completely to what this whole example. We were watching KBC and they have these people who come and talk about good things, whatever they are doing and whatever. There was this lady who came and she had been raped when she was 8 years old and whatever, but she took it on to herself and she started saving people, women who were in trouble, brothels, whatever. She has saved some 22,000 people.
Wow.
And the stories which she was saying were so moving, they were so the same. And then, she was talking about 9-year-old girls being raped and stuff. 9-month-old girls being raped and stuff. And when she was saying all these things, Nita and I were both very emotional and very touched
Obviously.
and whatever.
Yes.
Then I said, these things, they shake your this thing of what we understand of Ishvara and all. That is it an unfair world? So when you were saying, yes, we both talked about it, that we understand so much, I mean we try to study it, but these things shake you up.
You understand there is
Now,
karma. What kind of karma?
What type of karma must that poor kid have done who is 9-month-old, who has gone through this and whatever? So those were the questions which we would know, some of the but then we said, okay, what do we do? So it was already 10:30, so in the night we went and prayed. That was the only thing you
That's
could
the
do.
only thing, yeah, exactly.
I just have one question.
So we prayed. Then in the morning I said, this is not just enough.
Yeah.
So find out who that lady was, what is that samstha,
Oh,
whatever,
that's
and
wonderful.
do something about it.
Wonderful.
Namrata said, then I called Namrata, I said, there are 5 or 7 organizations like that. This is in Hyderabad, what you're talking. There are 5 or 7 organizations will do something very, very similar here also.
Excellent.
Let's explore this, find out more what they do, see what we can do about it.
Excellent.
So there is that whole cause, something happened, you saw that, it triggered something. So there is a way around these things.
Absolutely.
So it is not an unfair world. It was a
Absolutely.
message which was being sent,
Absolutely.
and you have to act on that.
Wonderful.
And the first thing you can do is pray.
Yeah.
That night was disturbed night.
Yes.
You prayed, and then you got your sleep and whatever those thoughts
Sure.
left you. But then there is a way of
Absolutely.
trying to.
See,
So
it,
there is some message coming somewhere. Okay, there is a need. There is a And
absolutely.
today you saw human trafficking, 39 people in a truck in London.
What
Outside.
happened?
No,
He might let people
Murder.
murder.
No,
Traffic.
trafficking.
Oh,
We don't
oh,
have
okay.
trafficking. We
Human
don't know
trafficking.
yet. No, so you are assuming that. In Essex, they found a truck which had 39 bodies of people being transported in the body.
From
We
Bulgaria.
don't know yet what the.
They were dead.
All dead. Most likely murdered, they are saying.
And
Here.
the driver murdered.
I can understand it. Everybody got died in the truck by who died in the truck traveling from Ireland and Bulgaria
I'm trying to
and
understand.
London.
Must be a
So who were the people?
Karma
No, that's
thinking
what
so
I'm
that
saying. It could be
movie
human
you know the
trafficking.
past.
Not enough
Learns
to
more.
The driver was a psychopath. Who knows?
But the kid at 9
We
was
don't
in the
know yet.
recollection. If he was there at 19,
I mean, I guess it's not so clear yet.
See,
I don't know.
horrible.
My understanding, karma is for some past actions that you are supposed to clear off. You've done something bad, you have a negative kick. So I'm trying to understand if this 9-month girl who got raped, she has no recollection at 9 months. I can
It's a past life.
pass like what? Assuming she was 19 years old and this happened, she has some recollection of what happened to her. Is there a difference? I mean,
See,
I'm not able to understand this.
Suppose maybe the whole, I want to talk about this because the way we understand karma is so sometimes, skewed. We need to straighten it out, right? Suppose I tell you, okay, you tell me all the physical causes which are at play. Will you know all the details? Does it mean that you're not subject to them? Do you know all the genetic causes from your great grandfather and know what genes they were carrying and what lifestyle they had because of which it was aggravated or it was. Do you know any of that? Does it mean that you're not subject to it? So this whole assumption that I have to know it all and only then I can be subject to it itself is actually a fallacy. This is why we call it all knowledge and all power, which has the capacity to join causes of millennia, of which I will never have all the information, and yet I'm subject to it. And this is why apparently occasions which actually don't make sense to me, my tendency is to now call it unfair. Because I don't understand the multiple of the at no point in time, not only karma, none of these are totally available to me. So we think that I'm only liable if I know all the karma. It's not true. You are liable when you have performed an action, whether you know about it or not. And you're also not only this law, every other law is like that. You are liable, everything affects you. Ecological laws affect you. And that is a result of somebody else. It's not only you, but somebody else doing. This is why interconnected world. Right? Somebody else has done the damage to the environment and you have asthma and you are struggling. When that cause is affecting you. You don't even know that person. You have never met that person. But
When
it's
you
still
don't understand something, you are questioning all the laws which you understand.
absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
there are 1,000 laws which you have explained, which we
Absolutely.
all understand now. We have,
Still
for
you
one
go
thing
back-
which we don't understand, we
And then
say,
you go back to
you know,
unfair.
ye sab kya hai?
This is exactly what I'm saying. In order for this knowledge, it has to become unshakable. It's not like one event happens and then again you go back to the same, oh, the world is so unfair. Because you don't know all the causes, right? Now, when something like this happens, so does that answer your question? You don't know doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, right? Now, the second thing that we have to absolutely understand very clearly, when we talk about things like, this 9 month, and we always think that it was something we only give what? She must have done something wrong in the past to deserve this. Is it true? Seems so.
Maybe not.
People are always creating new causes. What it means is that this guy who was who was totally distorted, right? He is using his free will to abuse her. It's not like she had some causes in order to go through that. So what it means is we are constantly creating new karmas by our choices. And by those karmas, listen to it very carefully, because otherwise we lead to everything is because of past. So if everything is because of past, what are you doing now? Now you are creating new things which are not the result of the past causes. And this is why you can change the trajectory of your life. You need to understand this very clearly. Otherwise it is always like, oh, I must have done something in the past to deserve it. I'll give you an example which is a very big thing. I'm not talking about something small. One woman came and her son died in a car accident and he was in his 30s. Now, when she came to me and she says, was it my son's karma? Or was it my karma? You have to be very, very careful when you give an answer like that. Because suppose all this, how it works and what situation it produces, can I ever know it? Do I know what the son's karma was in the past? Do I know what the mother's karma was in the past? Do I know what the driver's karma who drove was it in the past? Do I know it? This is always what? From my standpoint, it's always unknown. So when I say it was due to past karma, something which is unknown to me, I'm pretending that I know it. Disaster. Please don't use this karma as a disastrous topic, because people use it wrongly all the time. They talk about things which are by definition unknowable as something which is known. Now, so that means that is unknowable is pretended to be known. Now, there are multiple factors working here and I attribute only one of them to the whole event. Do you understand? So that means there are multiple factors and I think it's only karma. This is being highly simplistic. Now, the third thing is
What are multiple factors other than karma?
as I just
All the
explained,
other
right? Only now, in this particular case, right? In this particular case, which is like suppose this man abused a 9-month-old, what could be the cause? Could be, right? I'm not saying I know it. Nobody knows it. It could be inner karma, which is the past causes. It could be. Hers.
The kid.
Could be, right? Could be. Maybe, but there is also a possibility that there is a psychological order working here. What it means is that the person who is the one who commits the crime himself is what? Going through a lot of pain and whatever, and now he's choosing an action. So that means it's a psychological law which makes that person make those choices, and it's not like she has done something wrong in the past. Do you understand? So we not only receive
the victim of his actions.
exactly. So for which he will have to
But she
take
also
the
knows
victim.
it, why her, right? But I would say why
In
her?
this
Yeah.
life, so this is what you need to understand. Every action that you choose, when you do it from your own pain or whatever, you don't understand what are the consequences that others go through. But they do go through that. And when they do go through that, the results of those come back to you. So what it means is not only so
The lady who was saying this was a victim herself. She herself had got raped when she was 15 years old by 8 people. What did she choose to do?
exactly.
Once that incident happened, what did she choose to do? She has saved 22,000 other girls from other places.
Absolutely. Either you can
Okay.
do that or
So
you
there
can
is this whole interconnectedness goes.
see within
But
that.
this is a silly question. What if the person was genuinely a sick person and didn't really have a free will to exercise? As in, you know how some people are like, I don't know, psychotic or whatever.
So what we say
So does
is
the karmic thing have the same impact?
absolutely. Absolutely. Otherwise, what will happen? See, you do the kind of suppose I'm not in my mind and I do a crime and I'm not liable for that. What will it mean? It would mean that the more ignorant I am, more I'm absolved of my responsibilities. That will lead
You know
to
how in law they
disaster.
actually say not of sound mind when you get off.
Yeah. So no, not here.
Okay.
Because you need this.
This is a legal
Suppose
word.
it works like that. The more ignorant you are, the better. Because then you
Yeah,
are
no,
absolved of all the
yeah.
responsibilities. So these laws don't work like that. So there is a
Then
compensation
sometimes you also
system.
feel why go?
Yeah. So
Poor child, why go?
see, sometimes
Good.
I do a given act. Suppose I give a class, right? I give a class and I give messages. Oh, desires are very bad. You have come very nicely to listen. You want to spiritually evolve, but I'm giving you the totally misguided messages. You are going to be affected. It's not like it's your karma. Therefore, I am abusing my role. This is why constantly we create new karma, and this is why you have to evolve so that otherwise what happens, your actions begin to affect others whether you know it or not. What does Vedanta show you? Hey, whether you understand it or not, how you choose to act, you're constantly creating new causes. So that means it's not like Nita is going through she's paying for her karma because I'm giving her misguided message and she's kind of paying for her karma. What right now I'm abusing something and what the effects are felt. And when I do that, when I create a karma like that, the consequences will come.
But I guess what they're asking is that why this person in that class and not that person?
Yeah, so that is something again, and there are so many other causes. Do you understand? So it's not just karma cause. If you take everything as karma and make it like you're going through whatever you're going through in life because of your past karma, you will
become a
become
zombie.
totally fatalistic.
Like maybe the child will grow up to help other people.
Absolutely. So this, please don't use karma in this way because you will actually increase your burden rather than find an intelligent solution for what is in front of you. There is not once, please listen to what I am saying carefully. In Bhagavad Gita, did once Lord Krishna tell Arjuna, these are all because your karma and now you just go through that and let them destroy you. Did he once say that? Did he once say that? So please don't misuse this karma. I have to spend so much time to take people out of their previous conditioning where it's almost like I have done something in the, and this can happen. And I listened to a talk where, the implications of this, subscribing to this opinion is disastrous. I was invited at one talk and one lady was giving a talk on this karma. And she's giving an advice. What is the advice? She tells people, so she says, if you are being abused by, suppose, your husband or whoever it is, she says it's your past karma. So that's why you're receiving it. So what is her solution? Oh, let him abuse even more so that you exhaust this karma. So
what is the reason she's getting abused?
So that means he is abusing it
Because
whether
of
it
his-
is whatever
his action.
right now.
But she has a choice.
Exactly.
At least she has a choice. This child doesn't have a choice. See, that's why you get
So-
into this thing that why that little baby who doesn't have any options.
The thing is, suppose she went through that and that person is abusing it,
Yeah.
right? That person will pay for
Pay
it, right?
Yeah.
Now, when she grows up, she has a choice.
Yeah.
Whether she is living
She
the rest
gets
of her
damaged or
life
she
as
brings
a
herself
victim,
down.
as a victim of see what has happened to me, see how unfairly life has treated me, I was only a 9-month-old and what happened to me.
But a 9-month-old
Or that
doesn't know.
person can choose to,
Damages in psychology.
yeah, but that person, that turnaround is possible. That she can actually get up and say, let me help others, and she can make difference in 22,000 lives. this,
Yes.
what you need to understand is what you need to understand is whatever is in front of you requires your response.
And then that way, maybe the 9-month-old got adopted in Odisha, went to Boston,
Yeah,
went
of
to
course.
MIT, created nuclear fission and is helping 2 billion people.
Yeah.
So then
It can go either way, right?
So
Like,
that's the thing.
what
Life-
is the negative one needed?
So-
Which eventually you have a positive outcome.
no, you can't. She doesn't have a
I don't know,
choice.
I'm just asking.
Yeah. So
Putting it
what
out.
happens is when everything follows cause and effect, everything, what we are saying is that everything doesn't always happen as we want things to happen, right? Because there are too many causes which are already collapsed, which are actually coming into play, about which we can't do anything. So how we are supposed to use this information is not to say, I must have done something in the past in order to deserve it. You have to say, hey, there are causes, so I cannot say the world is random. I cannot say that the world is unfair, but I still have to respond, and in that response,
What
I
can
have a
I do?
choice.
With
What
this
can I do?
knowledge, with this
Absolutely.
position,
What can I
with
do?
this
Either I
situation,
can
what
turn
can I do?
the whole thing around, or I play as a victim and spend rest of my life as a victim. You have that choice. And the minute you have this knowledge, what it is supposed to do for you is to make your faculty of choice, evolve, where you can actually turn things around. That is how you change the trajectory of your life. Otherwise, you're caught in this whole big thing, and there's no way out. So please don't use karma to just kind of say, oh, I have done something. It's not to increase our load. What does it do? I have multiple variables I reduce to one. That is my first. Unknown things I pretend to be knowing. And instead of thinking about solutions, I kind of put it all in a blame mode. So that means it's exactly opposite of what it is supposed to do for you.
I got 90% clarity. Now I'm going to still ask one more question.
Okay, sure.
Could it be Nirbhaya, the woman who,
Yeah.
the little girl
Yeah.
who was raped, could it be she had taken on the role to stimulate social change and went through that?
See, these are, as I told you, these are all unknown. Nobody knows. So you don't pretend to talk about things.
It's not karma, but I mean,
But that's a very interesting point actually. I suddenly just realized that she's caused so much positivity.
yes, yeah. So I'm just wondering, that was the purpose in life in this
Was
world.
Malala
Huh?
or that Pakistani girl Malala? She got
Malala
shot.
Yousafzai.
Yeah, but Nirbhaya, because you always think of her as, oh my god, and suddenly you just feel like, wow, actually, not oh my god.
Say, I knew somebody, and they also know somebody, who was in the panel for this Nirbhaya case. And what is interesting is, please don't always think it's some past thing. She was, there was this juvenile, and this juvenile, she was talking to him, and why she was talking to him, a story emerged. What is the story emerged? Initially, when others were raping her, he didn't want to do anything. He was just standing there, and he was actually quite terrified. And they all kept prodding him and said, "Ah, you are like this." So at that time, and then at one point, he freaked out. Because, so that means those decisions were made at that given point in time. And that caused, and he caused the major damage, the most damage he caused. He became an animal. So it's not like, oh, something happened in the past. That particular moment when he was actually just witnessing what the friends did and what effect it had on him and what he decided to do. These are all, yeah, and got totally misled and got carried away.
There's a show on this also.
There's a
Called
show.
Demi
Incidentally,
Absolutely.
he was himself a victim of severe
Yeah,
damage.
he himself was.
It was nice.
So I guess there's just cause and effect, cause and effect.
So that means in that cause, but even though he himself was a victim, his first reaction was not to participate. But then he was, so this is why, what is the purpose of this whole thing? It is to say whether you know anything or not, what your actions are, every second you're performing actions. I can't say, oh, I can't release myself of responsibility. I say, oh, it is Neeta's bad karma who brought her to my class and I'm misguiding everyone. Is this the right logic? I mean, think about it. It's ridiculous to think like that, right? I have to say, I am abusing, I am posing as a teacher. I am propagating ideas which are not, and the responsibility is on me. I am making that choice, and you have just come, and the responsibility lies on me, and I have to pay for it. If you take it the other way, it's like the other person is not doing anything wrong, it's only you who has to go through this because somehow the world wants you to suffer because something wrong you have done in the past. Is it clear? Now, it is all based on how do I make choices and not about blaming that I must have done something in the past, therefore I'm going through
If you've
this.
done something wrong in the present, not
Yeah.
like in your past life,
Yeah,
and
sure.
now you're
Yeah.
whatever age you are, then you did something that you did not completely proud of.
Sure.
And of course now you're making amends, but then something goes wrong and you feel that maybe I had done this to this person and so now it's kind of biting me back.
And it's good to recognize that. See, it's good to do little bit of reflection about your life and say, because these are things which are known, right? So
Correct.
here you can actually say that I must have done, I mean, I did do this and now I'm seeing the effect. The more and more you do that, it is not meant to give you more guilt about what you did. It is giving you more opportunities to
More
And
insight,
awareness and
more,
balance
to be able to nuance it more.
You don't beat
you
yourself
don't beat
about it and
yourself.
not beat
Absolutely.
You
You
can
can
rectify.
recognize this
Exactly.
and
And
start
I'm
taking
teaching.
forward from there.
See, no, none of us have come with perfect knowledge of everything, perfect understanding of everything. So it's bound to be that you make mistakes. There is not one person who is free from that, right? Now, either you can say that, no, I have made some mistakes and I'm paying for it, or you can say, yeah, I made mistakes and I'm learning, and now I'm going
What
to
can I
change
do
the
about
way. And we have something which is beautiful in our whole tradition. We have Prayashchitta Karma. Prayashchitta Karma means,
Repay.
suppose you remember that this is something which was inappropriate and it did cause a confusion, you can actually do a sankalpa. What is a sankalpa? For the actions which I have done in the past, which with my limited knowledge, and it did create a little confusion. Now I want this prayer to go towards neutralizing the effects. So what you are doing is creating a new causes to neutralize the effects of the past collapsed actions. So that is a big thing of Prayashchitta Karma. So instead of feeling guilty about it, you pray. And
Even
say,
if that person is passed away.
even if it, wherever. So this is why I think you do, Neeta, this, there is a very famous prayer. Yeah, you do it, I know. Karacharana Kritam va, Karyajam Karmajam va, Shravana Nayana Jam va, Manasam va Paradam, Vihitam Avihitam va, Sarvam Etat Kshamasva. Jaya Jaya Karunate, Shri Mahadeva Shri. Beautiful.
And it
What does it mean?
when you
Do
say
you know this?
no, it
No, I remember this prayer.
We say Arya and I say it every night.
What
We
is
all
it?
something we all
What is
laugh
for
at.
Prayashchitta?
I heard it sound
For
like
Prayashchitta.
Jamma Jamma.
Yeah.
So I remember it from that keyword. Jamma is food to eat. Jamma
It is part of it, is at the end of Shiva
Shiva
Manasa.
Manasa.
So what does it mean basically?
So it says
Shiva Manasa.
Kara Charana Krutamba. So that there are the karmas which are done through my hands or through my legs. Kaya Jam Karma Jalva. Either through my speech or through my actions.
Karma, yeah.
Yeah, my actions. Kara Charana Krutamba.
Shravana, Nayana,
Shravana
Jamba.
Nayana Jamba. Anything which is done with my eyes and with my hearing. Manasam, mental action. Manasava aparadam. Aparadam means all the wrong that I have done. Vihitam avihitam. Known and unintentionally. Done intentionally and done unintentionally. So Vihitam and Sarvam etat Kshamasva. All these things which I have done, whatever, that may you, Jaya Jaya Karuna. So you are the Abdi, you are the ocean of Karuna. You are the ocean. ocean of compassion, Mahadeva Shambhu. Beautiful prayer.
What is the last one?
Mahadev Shambhu.
Mahadeva is Shambhu is Lord Shiva. So you are ocean of compassion.
One of the
So it's a lovely prayer to do. Because the Vivikam and Navvitam, so much is done by us unknowingly, but we keep creating confusion. People, you love somebody, but you try to control and you affect so many lives. But you have to teach her what you
I
say.
taught her the meaning. We talked about this earlier in class.
I did not.
Yeah. And we had, no, but we had talked about it, so then we spoke about it at night. Then this is the meaning, or did you know the meaning and all that, so, yeah.
So therefore, don't use this to say that I'm going through my life because I've done something wrong and this life I just have to go through. And use this to understand that the world is not unfair. Whatever comes to you has multiple reasons. It's not just one reason. It's a complex thing which is coming from Ishvara. This is where Prasada Buddhi comes. Prasada Buddhi means whatever comes to me is coming from these laws which are infallible. So instead of blaming the world or blaming myself, I have to think about what can I do.
It's not random.
It's not random, but it's not unfair. So it is happening for a reason. But I
Just
can't
because we
only-
do
there are
not
so
see the
many
reason,
causes.
it doesn't mean that it is not.
Absolutely.
And we have to only focus on what
What
we can
I
do
can do, right.
in that situation.
And when I do, I have to understand
That it's
and
not
then
random.
act responsibly and not like, oh, now I'm going through this. So if I'm going through it, what is there for me to do? Nothing. I just have to go through more. But it's not like that.
You do what is right for you at that moment.
Yeah, at that time, what is an appropriate thing, and then you have to assess in
Right
terms
for
of
right for the situation, right for people,
everything, right?
culmination.
Your duties, your responsibilities, and you can always, you have this possibility of turning around. Please don't forget that.
Within your,
Within your-
Samanya.
Yeah,
Yeah.
within your, that turning around is a big thing, and I just will, I'm way past the time, so I'll stop. And I wanted to give you one more example, maybe I can give. But anyway, I hope I answered this question. Why did Krishna help Arjuna? Is it clear? Arjuna helped Arjuna.
But it's a prayer and
It's a prayer, that's right.
and he was playing Ishvara.
Yeah. And at the same time,
He allowed
the
that
final
and
outcome is he
outcome
lost.
is-
Yeah, he lost, right? Even though he got such a big help, because the other variable